A lot of people talk about launching to an audience and building up your audience before. You can just launch an add-on into an ecosystem where there is an audience already and then grow your audience.
In this episode, I'm joined by James Fyfe, co founder of Portant, a document automation platform bridging HubSpot and Google Workspaces. James shares his fascinating entrepreneurial journey from bootstrapping Portant to profitability and building a B2B SaaS business in sales enablement. Hey, hi, James. Thanks for joining me on the podcast.
Hey there, good to be here.
So yeah, we met at HubSpot Inbound at a marketing conference. I met you. How was the conference for you?
Yeah, we had a good time. I think we met at the one of the parties, didn't we? One of the many parties. I think with that conference, like a lot of the work happens after 5 p.m.
Yep.
It's like the official conference finishes and then the unofficial good bit of networking begins. And yeah, inbound's always a fun time of year for us. It's only the second time we've been, but yeah, we've met a lot of good people there, and it's been good growth driver for our business. So yeah, we had fun.
Yeah, it was nice to bump into another Antler alum. Small world.
Yeah, that's right.
Did you graduate from Antler, Australia, or
Yeah, Atlas Sydney.
Sydney?
So
Okay.
we were part of the third cohort from Sydney, which was back in 2020. We started in June
Hmm.
during the middle of COVID. The first 2 weeks were remote, and then we went into the office for the next part of the program, which was, yeah. At the time, I was actually in the UK, and I decided to apply, and then it was the impetus for me to move back from the UK to Australia. I flew in on one of those COVID flights where all the air crew were wearing like the full hazmat suits.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and there was like 10 or 20 people on my flight, and it was like a full Airbus A350, like a massive plane with 20 people on it, and on probably the same number of crew as people. And
Real.
went into a quarantine hotel for 2 weeks, and then that's when I was doing this the first 2 weeks of the Antler program. And yeah, I just think that was just a it was just a very unique time.
It was indeed. Yeah, we'll talk about Antler as well. I see the WeWork mug.
Hmm.
You're at the WeWork.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right.
nice. For everyone else, do you want to give a little bit of background about Potent and what you guys are doing and who the customer is?
Yeah, sure. So what we do at Portent is we are the glue between HubSpot and Google Docs. So we make it easy for our customers to generate quotes, contracts, proposals, invoices, any kind of document really, but really focused in on the sales enablement part of documentation at the moment. And the reason why people switch to Portent is because we allow you to create these templates in Google Docs and Slides. So you can generate a document to look exactly the way you want it to look instead of being limited in some of our competitors' tools. For example, PandaDoc, or another one where they built their own document editor, and you're limited by the design constraints that editor is able to provide you with.
I remember us speaking about how you landed there. Do you want to talk a little bit about the original idea and the pivot
Yeah.
and how serendipitously you managed to take that design decision?
Yeah, totally. I think that we started out with working on, we had both come from quite large companies and were working on this kind of reporting problem. We had both experienced the same thing where we had to send like weekly reports or monthly reports of how a project was progressing. And it was just copy and pasting information from tools like Jira or Trello or Airtable, or like a project management tool, into an email or a document, and then sending that on to some other stakeholders, whether that is internally or externally. We thought that this problem was really interesting to us, so we built a tool, and we were building like a web app to generate this type of report, the MVP. And one day I said to Blake, why don't we just make an add-on for Google Docs? Then we don't have to worry about the document editor at all. We just have to worry about getting data in. And that was one of our big moments of our business. And we released this add-on for reporting, and it's called something like Portant data sourcer, I think. And people started using it for all kinds of things apart from reporting. And so we had the first big thing of, guess here's our first pivot. Let's start doing more generic documentation. Slowly, we found ourselves going into the sales space because if you enable sales, people are more likely to pay for your product. So we just kept on going closer and closer to where the money was generated in an organization and helping them generate revenue quicker. And that's how we found ourselves here. But I think it's been a journey to get here. We've definitely released a few versions of the product which have not fully satisfied the customers' requirements who are willing to pay for it. Sure, like we do have a few customers who don't pay us any money and they're historical, but they're not in the people in the sales function to pay for tools for sales enablement.
Interesting. And so how was the switch from, so the first product was off, I'm assuming off HubSpot. How did you end up landing product on the HubSpot marketplace?
Early on in our product, we sourced data. We pulled in data from different places.
Mm-hmm.
And two of the major places at the beginning were Google Sheets and Google Forms. So somebody could submit a Google form and it would generate a document, or somebody could select a bunch of rows from a Google Sheet and it would generate documents.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be in the sources part of our app. And then underneath those two main tools, we'd have a lot of different other app icons, which looked like they were other sources that you could connect with. But when you clicked on it, it said, "Oh, sorry, we're just working on this at the moment." In the UX world, I think it's called a fake door test.
Yep.
And so it looks like the functionality exists, and then you click on it, and that's us just collecting feedback of what tools people want. And we started getting signals in the HubSpot area. To be honest, there wasn't actually as many as other tools on that. I just had a feeling that HubSpot seemed like an interesting one to test. And then we built our first integration with HubSpot, released an app, and yeah, it was a very quick adoption. I think we got lucky with one of the first customers who came and found out about Portant, and we signed our first enterprise deal off the back of releasing an app on the HubSpot ecosystem. And that really made us pay attention and say, this ecosystem looks really interesting and we should probably focus in on it. And every month, I think Blake and I do talk about it and we say, we should focus in more on HubSpot. Like, we still do Google Sheets and Google Forms stuff. We should definitely focus in more on HubSpot. And that's what we continue to do.
Interesting. How much of deal flow from HubSpot that's coming in is enterprise versus SMEs versus a small shop? Are you using HubSpot?
Based on revenue, I would say that 20% of our revenue comes from enterprise,
Mm-hmm.
and that's all driven through HubSpot.
Okay.
So no, we haven't got any enterprise deals which aren't integrated with HubSpot. And then out of the next 80%, I would say 60% of that revenue, maybe a bit less, maybe 50%, is HubSpot enabled too. So revenue wise, it's high. Customer wise, I'd say the split is, because they're just bigger spenders in that ecosystem. So revenue wise, it's around that area, 60-70% HubSpot.
And from a traditional SaaS, how different is selling to an enterprise on HubSpot and servicing them?
Yeah, this is actually like I released this post last week about procurement processes for enterprise deals, and just in a bit of frustration because somebody was asking us to sign up for, I don't know, do some procurement forms before they'd even carried out the free trial, and I found this frustrating because we'd closed deals much larger than they were on them just trying the software and going through almost the self-serve process with a little bit of sales layered on top of it. And I think that we'll continue to focus on that, the lighter touch area of enterprise, and not go in on the people who need the full-on procurement processes for the time being. Mostly because I find it boring. But
Yeah,
I
who
just
need
think
the
that
prenup?
we totally, there's a free trial there. If Just sign up with your personal email if you really want.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
There's a lot of wasted time. I think we have to be really focused. As in the startup, there's 5 of us, 5 full-time employees building this business.
Yeah.
I can't spend too much of my time on these security questionnaires.
Yeah, at this stage, yeah, makes sense to focus on light touch deals. I think the future is going to be also, if you look at where the market is heading with all the tooling that is coming out, the indication that more companies are going to be leaner companies, which means you will
Yeah,
anyways 3 years down the line have a lot more SMEs than big enterprises.
yeah, that's
Um,
true. I hadn't
although
thought about it that way. That's true.
Yeah, I just wrote a post that I'm about to publish today. So this is
Okay,
like
this is top of mind.
fresh off the content kitchen.
Content kitchen. I like that. I haven't heard that before.
Your GTM is primarily now a HubSpot motion. Any lessons or learnings? I've actually not done any product that had a primary GTM motion on a marketplace. How does that work? What are the lessons there?
Well, the great thing about that is that if you build your MVP as an add-on for an ecosystem, you are focusing in on what is your value add on top of what is already available.
Hmm.
And so it really focuses it on you only providing value and not having to provide the table stakes of a product. And it also allows you access to a market. So Google Chrome is probably the most important, or not most important, but biggest add-on store which we could have gone down, but we just selected to go down the Google Workspace add-ons. So those are add-ons which are companion apps for the side of Google Docs and Sheets. And to be honest, I think a lot of people don't actually know about those existing.
That is true.
But
I have not looked at
we
extensively.
and you're limited in that area, but there are millions of users using Google Workspace, and we found quite quickly, because we were focusing in on a problem and talking about a problem on our marketplace listing, that people would try our product without much push at the beginning. We got our first 10 users within, I don't know, maybe 48 hours of launching. We didn't have an email list or anything. We just launched it there. I think
Mm.
we had 100 by week 2, and it really grew quickly. And those users were able to knock us into shape and provide the feedback of getting the right space. And so we just continually worked on optimizing our listing on search phrases that people were having issues with and trying to find solutions for,
Mm.
and even optimizing the listing and finding out what drove more growth, and then using that as data to feed back into where the product direction would go was good. A lot of people talk about launching to an audience and building up your audience before. You can just launch an add-on into an ecosystem where there is an audience already, and then grow your audience from there. So personally, I find that audience growing when you don't have a product really hard, and I don't know actually how people do that.
Yeah. Even if you have a product, which I guess is a known trick, but sounds more interesting when we talk about it, which is even if you have a product, you can simply build integrations and launch to marketplaces, right?
Yes,
And that creates visibility. That's
I
a,
think you need to be careful of this one where it's launching on multiple marketplaces at the same time,
Hmm.
or not putting enough focus in on one ecosystem.
Yeah.
Because how you can differentiate yourself between the majority is by really going deep on one platform. And
Yeah.
that's, we were talking earlier about, if we're going to go to Salesforce or another CRM soon, and how we're differentiating and growing in the HubSpot ecosystem at this moment in time. As I mentioned before, we only have 5 employees, so we need to focus our energy on the most important thing.
Yeah.
And for me, the most important thing is to go really deep on integration and functionality with a couple of platforms, and then that will be our differentiator in the market. And our reviews speak for themselves. If people use Google Workspace and HubSpot, they'll love Portant. It's There's no question.
Yeah, focus is definitely important. What about competition? Yes, building a product as an add-on does get you the distribution, but then doesn't that also mean uh, if your product sits completely on top of as an add-on and it's not a standalone product, how do you defend from competition or somebody else
You mean
coming in and creating the same add-on?
that happens a lot in the Google Workspace
Mhm.
marketplace? It happens a lot. You just have to type in something like mail merge into that marketplace, and you would find a lot of mail merge tools.
Yeah.
And they compete in our system, but they're more focused in on email.
Yep.
We're very focused on documentation, or not documentation, documents. So how we compete with them,
How do you defend? That was the question. Yeah.
differentiate.
How do you defend, not differentiate?
I think that we focus very heavily on the customer, and I don't pay much attention to what the other tools are doing. I used to fall into that trap of how another tool was doing something, and I think it can be a constraint of thinking about how problems should be solved if you almost look at someone else's answer before you have worked on it yourself.
Yeah.
We are differentiated through probably not looking at them and then thinking about how we would solve it ourselves.
I guess the
And we
pie
keep
is,
trying to move fast.
yeah, and the pie is growing, right? So there's always new customers coming in.
Yeah.
We are growing 7 billion and more.
Yeah.
We spoke about how you had easier time selling when the motion was HubSpot plus inbound versus
Yes.
outbound. Do you want to talk
Yeah.
about that?
Yeah. I think as a lot of people have probably received emails in their inbox from outbound specialists trying to convince you that outbound's the way to go.
Yep.
And we have always struggled with that because it seems like we are just more successful when people have the problem and they are looking for a solution to that problem. I don't think we found the magic messaging or offer that makes people aware of the problem they have currently, and then the natural next step is to purchase Portant. So we need to. I don't think it's not a path for us. I just think at this point in our journey, our thoughts, or when the customer actually has the problem, we are able to speak to how to solve that. Whereas when people are unaware they have the problem, we are unaware, or we are not sure about how the messaging works to say, you have this problem and this is how we solve it. We haven't got there yet. And I think it's because a lot of this stuff in B2B SaaS is we enable efficiency gains. We save you time. You save time, you get to do more of what you want to do. I think every tool says that. It's really hard to provide some cut through in that space when everybody's saying the same thing.
Yeah. And so, how do you enable inbound? Are you doing anything actively to enable that inbound?
I I try to lightly connect with as many people on LinkedIn as possible. I have tried the hard sell kind of connection request, then sell our product, and it just doesn't
Doesn't.
fit. I think people get turned off with that. I think if you're I connect with people who it makes sense to be connected with, say in the HubSpot ecosystem, and I get as much value from those connections as hopefully they get from the content I'm posting as well, just to be more in tune with what that community is talking about.
Hmm.
And so we connect with as I connect with as many people as possible, just so they are aware of Portent, maybe from an educational perspective of what we're solving. And then when people have the problem and they find out about Portent, they install it. We really optimize our communication to try and encourage the meeting, try and encourage them to book a call for us to help them set up their important workflows. And over time, we've tried to be more stringent on who those connection requests are, or not connection requests, but the offer of the meeting is going out to. It used to be to everyone because we didn't have enough users.
Hmm.
But now we're trying to segment who are the most high value users. It's working, but it's like a lever that you need to turn up and down. Like we could have more meetings right now. We should be more permissive on who we're meeting with. We really try to enhance our communication to encourage them to book time with me to have a conversation, and then hopefully from that we were able to sell them the software, and they become an ambassador for us.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a function of time, right? If you have time, yeah, you want to talk to as many potential
Yeah.
customers as possible. You've raised money from Antler. You haven't done a follow-on round yet.
No.
And from our conversation last time, we did speak about you're running it like a bootstrapped ship. How was the Antler experience for you? And what were the takeaways from being in an accelerator?
I would have never met Blake if it wasn't for Antler. I didn't go into Antler with a co-founder, as some people do,
Hmm.
and to have the time and space to think about a problem, meet interesting people, and learn a lot, it's super valuable. That was a really fun time in my life. I've met loads of lifelong friends through Antler,
Yeah.
which has been great. And the pitching process of clarifying the thought and going through an IC, an investment committee, to get the investment was quite stressful. And it's a good forcing function of getting to the next step
Yeah.
and stop being theoretical, even if a lot of it is still theoretical at that stage. So that was all fantastic, and I enjoyed my time. And then after Antler, we they encourage you a lot to get another round of funding in quite soon after, while you're hot, while you're interesting. And so we met quite a few different VCs within Sydney and also Australia, some angels, and if I'm honest, we found it really difficult to get to the next step. It was a lot of answers like, this isn't the right time, come to us when you have some revenue, delaying statements, not statements where they're interesting. And I can look back on that now and say, they just weren't keen. But I was chasing them for 6-7 months without much success, and probably burnt a lot of energy and time, or cycles on that part of the process, which we made the decision to cut it and say, no, we're not going to continue trying to raise money. We have a bunch of money from Antler. Let's go into bootstrap mode, use this restriction of money as a forcing function
Hmm.
to come up with a creative solution to a problem, and let's start driving revenue.
Yeah.
And I remember as soon as we did that, we added the payment, the Portant Pro, like that day. We added it and we tried to get as much revenue as possible. We were so excited when the first
Dollar came in.
customer came in, and it was $9 per month. It was so exciting.
Yeah, making that first sale is, yeah, when you raise the first round, and people talk about this a lot, always be raising, always be closing, and the journey itself becomes about raising.
Yeah,
And so once you've raised, it's okay, for the next raise I need XYZ, now let's line that up.
yeah. I also think that at that point, I remember thinking that we were in this process of trying to find the signal through the noise. We were trying to get so many inputs on what we were doing, and talking to investors were more signals of people who had opinions of what we were doing that we were taking into account, but they weren't our customers.
Yes.
And so my time talking to investors would have been better spent talking to customers or potential customers or users,
Yep.
and getting more definite signal through all that noise, because it's really stressful at that point where you're trying to work out what you should be doing. And if you're taking too much consideration on people who aren't your customer but you think are influential, then you can get really easily distracted. So cutting off that noise and then doubling down into the time spent on talking with customers, and getting closer to problem solution fit was, yeah, it was a really refreshing moment where we said, no more investment talks, let's go and talk to customers and build this and try and get to profitability.
That allowed you probably to spend a lot more time with the customer. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, are you profitable now, or we don't have to talk
Yeah.
about it if you don't want to?
No, of course. So we actually did take a small round though. A part of this journey is like after Antler, we did take a small round,
Oh, you did. Okay.
maybe a year and a half after, which wasn't as big as the Antler check. It was a little top up angel round.
Nice.
And that enabled us to hire our first engineer and go a little bit faster
Mm-hmm.
because we'd found the direction we wanted to be moving in and we wanted to go faster in that direction. We were at that point in time confident. And then in the middle, when would that have been? I think we raised that round in 2022,
Hmm.
and then we closed it March 2022, and then by June 2023 we were profitable. So at that point in time we were able to make our own decisions.
Hmm.
A lot of investors had said to us, they'd said, back to us when you're at 8k MRR. Come to back to us when you're at like 10k MRR. And then we got to those stages and we were thought to ourselves, why do we need you? And so I just said to Blake, do you want to raise? I don't think we need to right now. I think we're growing quite healthily and we're going in the right direction. Let's just keep going.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't have to raise. We spoke about how outbound has become such a problem. This is a side effect of the VC money. Over the years, VCs have pumped in money into these startups that
Mm-hmm.
have to grow at all costs. And how do you grow at all costs when customers are not reaching out to you? You reach out to
Yeah.
them.
Yes.
And so there are hundreds of startups, thousands of startups raising VC money, and then because they have to grow 3x 2x month on month, year on year, they are pumping that money into cold
Mm-hmm.
outbound programs.
Yeah, you're probably right. I never thought at the lower end of the market they were doing that.
If people were not so used to raising VC money and that acting as a forcing function, people wouldn't have to grow as fast, which means they wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
have to bombard people with buy me, buy me, buy me.
Yeah. Do you think it's only VC backed startups that are using the outbound strategy, or do you think that they're the highest percentage of
They're
email
probably
senders?
I have not looked at the data, but I think they're a high percentage, and I think they're the ones who've made this like a go-to sales motion.
Yep.
That's what I like.
Okay.
Again, this is one of those.
I'm gonna look into that more. I think it's just through the communities that I'm part of, the communities that bootstrapping community and the SaaS subreddit and all those things. Those are more bootstrapped based founders, and they talk a lot about outbound there as well. So
They do.
lot about instantly, but I think volume wise, you're probably right.
I've run both outbound and inbound campaigns over my career, and I certainly don't enjoy the outbound stuff.
I think that I should be doing more of it. I could be driving more revenue if I was doing more outbound in a better way, if I was picking up the phone and calling people.
Hmm.
So it's definitely in the back of my mind that I don't turn my back on it. It's almost slight guilt from my side that I'm not doing more. But it's kind of in the space of saying you should double down on what you're best at.
Yeah,
And I don't think I'm good at
outbound.
cold calling.
Well, you can always hire someone who's better at outbound and see if that helps.
I think that the other thing is I've got I'm not saying no, I'd never do it. I almost like the thought of how stressful that seems, or how it seems like you really have to put yourself out there to cold call. There's a lot of rejection, and full respect to the people who do it because it seems very scary. If I'm honest, picking up the phone and just talking to someone you've never met before, that's quite something. But it seems like that's like a challenge, and I like the idea of the challenge of being able to say that I can do it. I haven't done it yet, so I can't say that.
You probably enjoyed the scene from The Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, I think I respect it. I respect the skills of that person.
Yeah, it does. It definitely takes a whole different kind of skill and personality, probably.
I come from a mechanical engineering background, and a lot of the time early in my career, I didn't think as highly of sales as I think I should have. And
Oh,
now I have a newfound respect for everybody that I've met in sales and everybody who works in sales, because it's a super hard
and
it's a
it is
super hard
the
job.
skill, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's in sales.
Yes.
At the end of the day, everybody's in sales. Um, and so you right now you're bootstrapped. Are you raising, or you don't think
No,
you
we're
need
not
to?
raising.
You're not
No,
raising.
we're not raising.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, not if you don't have to, for sure. Yeah.
I think the thing which we've thought about raising is, if we find a go to market motion that needs more revenue and is working and is an engine that just needs more fuel put on the fire or something like that, we would raise. We would go to somebody, but maybe not even raise, maybe something debt wise,
Yeah.
but something to bring in more money if we found a repeatable process that just needed more money put on it. So I wouldn't say no, never, but it's the major challenge or objective of this year for me is to find the next go to market channel that's going to drive revenue for Portant, and still working on it. It's super tough.
If you need to, you need to. If you don't, yeah, you don't
Mm-hmm.
have to raise.
Isn't there? There's like raising to stay alive, and there's raising to really grow.
Yeah.
And fortunately enough, we don't need to raise to stay alive, but I wouldn't say no to raising to really turbocharge our growth. And
Yeah.
I'm sure everybody says that they're raising to grow quickly, but I know that some people are raising to stay alive.
Yeah, I mean, what do you make of? There are a lot of sales enablement and AI tools that are popping up. Where do you see the industry is heading?
I have come across lots of interesting products in the sales enablement space, and it's a big area. It seems like the best area is when the AI is layered in a thoughtful way into the product experience, which is already like a growing platform. A good example of this, it's not in sales enablement, but I think a good example of this is Intercom's way of how they brought in AI into their product. It was great. It was as help to make the customer success team or customer support team to move faster through tickets and conversations. And I think that was how we have tried to integrate it into Portant, is to be AI components of content inside documents instead of trying to really build a whole document via AI from scratch.
Yeah, so
At this point in time, I think.
if you already have a use case where you're solving a major pain and they're using you extensively, that's an even better place to like add on an AI strategy, because you can observe the users, you can understand what they're doing,
Mhm.
versus coming from outside and saying, hey, we are an AI product, we're an AI first product, this is what we want you to do with AI. We've covered a lot. Any final thoughts or recommendations for early stage founders who are struggling?
I think that's it. I think that's the thing which I go back to all the time, is the limitation of funds seemed like a real failing for us at the beginning. We couldn't raise the second round, and other people or other peers were closing large rounds.
Mhm.
And the limitation of cash at that stage was really did enable us to focus on what was most important. And it seemed like a really bad thing at the time. Looking back on it, we probably wouldn't be here today if we'd raised. I can't say that for sure, but it was so clarifying to think we only have this much money in the bank. We need to bring money into this company quick to ensure that we survive.
Less money is not always bad, and you just have to got to figure it out. Yeah. What's the next year looking like for you guys?
We are very excited about launching Microsoft Office in 2025. I think that is going to be a huge enablement for us. So instead of just having Google Docs and slides and sheets as templates, we will be able to have Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, and Excel as templates. And that's going to be, I think, a massive driver for us going forward. So, yeah, we're looking forward to that.
And are you guys hiring for any roles right now?
I think the engineering team will be expanding in 2025, but at this point, no open roles at this point in time.
Where can people find you guys and sign up? Is there a trial program? How does
Yeah. So people can sign up for Portant at portant.co, which is like important without the IM, portant.co. And we've got a free trial of our pro plan, which you can sign up for 14 days, and then you have a free plan, 30 documents per month forever. And you can have e-signatures on those documents. So it's a good replacement for tools like DocuSign and PandaDoc and Adobe Sign and stuff. So
Awesome.
we offer that for free.
Awesome. Thanks for taking the time, and it was a fun chat.
This is great. Thank you so much.
If you found this valuable, you can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or whatever your favorite podcast app is. See you in the next episode.